I saw a man fly! He is spectacular! You are watching what greatness is all about.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to NBA TV Basketballography. I'm Andre Aldridge. Today, we present a man who pioneered the point guard position in the NBA. Nicknamed the Houdini of the hardwood, Bob Cousy unleashed a flashy style that was decades ahead of its time. A variety of no-look passes, spinning dishes, and behind-the-back feeds made Cousy one of the most popular players of his era. But there was plenty of substance to go along with that style. In a career that spanned from 1950 to 1963, he led the league in assists 8 consecutive times and was consistently ranked near the top in scoring and free throw percentage. He was also a proven winner, helping to start the Boston Celtics dynasty with 6 titles in the late 50s and 60s. So now the story of a 13-time All-Star, a league MVP, a Hall of Famer, and one of the 50 greatest players of all time. A tale that begins, interestingly enough, across the ocean in Europe.
I was fabricated overseas in France and made it like 3 months after the boat landed at Ellis Island. This was in 1928, not a good year, and the heart of the Depression. And we lived in this nice ghetto area on East End Avenue and 81st Street, Yorkville, Manhattan. Up to that point, despite, b-ball being associated with NYC, I had never saw basketball. But thank God it took my dear old dad literally 12 years to save $500 and get us out of that ghetto and out to Long Island where there was a little fresh air, St. Albans, where every kid in town simply wanted to play basketball for the local high school. I momentarily went out for baseball and just lost interest because my having to go to baseball practice interrupted my going to the schoolyard to play 3-on-3. As I said, I gave that up and we exclusively played b-ball. At some point during my junior year, somebody grabbed me, I don't remember who, and said, "Hey kid, you may have some talent, you might get a scholarship." None of us were thinking about, being able to go to college or afford college in those days. But this guy said, "Hey, you're a C student, why don't you stay awake in your senior year and, you just don't want to get a scholarship, you want to go to a good school." So I pretty much did that and stayed awake and became a B+ student. And I was all city my last year, which for New York was kind of a big deal. I was deluged with 2 college offers from that experience. Today, a kid making all city will have 500 coaches, college coaches, sitting on his doorstep. We could have gone to the city schools, but I wanted to get out of the city, and so ended up at Holy Cross almost by mistake. I had a letter from the coach, Doggy Julian, saying, "Hey kid, I hear you're a hotshot out there. If you want a scholarship to Holy Cross, fill out this application and take a train up." That was the extent of the recruiting process. I knew nothing about Holy Cross, but I had a similar invitation to visit from the coach at Boston College. I went up there and I looked around and said, "Coach, we don't see any dorms. Where are we going to live? Where am I going to live?" He said, "It's a day hop school. We don't have any dorms." I said, "Well, where?" He said, "Well, you're going to live with a family off campus." Well, I was the original, completely shy ghetto kid. The thought of living with a family for 4 years was terrifying. I said, "Coach, thanks a lot." Got back on the train, went back to New York, found Doggy Julian's letter that I had discarded. I looked at the brochure, and there were dormitories at Holy Cross. I filled out the application, went there. About 10 of us meandered in the same way, and we won the NCAA our first year.
Cousy went on to become a 3-time All-American and one of the biggest names in the college game. As a senior, he led Holy Cross to 26 straight victories and a second-place finish in the NIT. But despite all his success, Cousy was planning for a future that didn't include basketball.
I never had seen an NBA game and had no plans to. My co-captain, Frank Orfling, and I went to see some bank presidents. We wanted to capitalize on whatever local notoriety we had created at Holy Cross. The bank presidents we went to had a thing for gas. They said, open up a string of gas stations. And so we took a crash course at Texaco. 2 weeks, went out, had the biggest Texaco opening in the history of the company in that area. However, after a period of time, the word got out that it was all right for us to pump gas, but like, don't go to them for anything fancy, because we emptied the hydromatic instead of the oil a few times, and the word got out we want the mechanic type. But we did do something with that. We opened up an auto driving school. Within a month, we had 3 cars going full time around the clock. But the point is, I had no thoughts about the pros. I had just gotten married that year. We had established our home in Worcester, Massachusetts. I got a phone call in May, whatever, some newspaper man said, hey, congratulations, you're the #1 pick in the country for the Tri-City Blackhawks. And the owner was Ben Kerner. He said, what's it going to take, Coos? And I said, $10,000. Oh, my God. Oh, no, $6,000 is all. I said, thanks a lot, Mr. Kerner. Shook his hand, went back to the airport, flew back, and continued teaching ladies to drive without paying much attention to it at all. I got a call a month later saying, by the way, they've traded you to Chicago. They eventually went bankrupt within another few weeks. Chicago franchise, they dispersed all of the players except 3 of us. Max Zaslowski, who had won the scoring championship the year before, an excellent point guard, Andy Phillip from Illinois, and myself hadn't been dispersed. So Maurice Podoloff, the commissioner, called those 3 teams that hadn't gotten players down in New York. New York picked first, got Max, and they were ecstatic. They wanted a good, solid Jewish player in New York, and that's exactly what Max was. Philadelphia picked second, got Andy Phillip, and the only thing left in the hat other than the lining was moi, and Boston ended up with me. And they called me again and said, hey, you got picked out of the hat by Boston. I said, great, that's the only place I'm going to play. Drove in the next day. The owner, Waller Brown, called me and said, Bob, come in and we'd like to talk to you. I drove in, and Waller said to me, what's it going to take? I said, $10,000. He said, oh, geez, I can only afford 9. I said, fine. And the rest, as they say, is history.
After taking a roundabout route to the NBA, Bob Cousy reported for his rookie season with the Boston Celtics in 1950. It was then that he was introduced to a fellow New Yorker who shared his no-nonsense approach to winning. An early encounter with Coach Arnold Red Auerbach showed Cousy that he wasn't in college anymore.
Holy Cross had a habit, for whatever reason, our coaches made us wear T-shirts underneath our jerseys. Absorbed sweat or whatever. And I remember walking out on the floor with this T-shirt, and Arnold screamed out something loving like, hey, look, what the hell are you doing with that T-shirt? Get down there and get it off. Well, I trotted back down and took the T-shirt off, came up with the jersey, and that was pretty much the end of any acrimony between he and I. From then on, we had a loving.
Well, there's the master passer of them all.
Red Auerbach was the mastermind behind the Boston Celtics, but he needed someone on the court to carry out his plan. A floor general with superior ball handling skill, Bob Cousy was the perfect fit.
He made me captain the first year, and I was basically leading the offensive end of things. It goes with the position. I think I was aware of how the game should be played on a professional level, in terms of overall team success and what your responsibilities were. I had some very clear concepts about that. But we always, Arnold was a transition coach, and he had a half a dozen plays over the years, and at the end of the game, if we never called a play, he was as happy as a pig in mud, because that meant we blew their doors off, probably, because we just ran their tail right off the court.
Cousy not only helped transform the Celtics into a winner, he did it with a style never before seen in the NBA. Auerbach's fast-breaking scheme allowed Cousy to create in the open floor. His artistry was a blend of ball fakes, trick passes, and deft dribbling technique that pleased the crowd and befuddled opponents.
Bob Cousy has dazzled countless fans with his thrilling brand of basketball.
Down to Cousy. Cousy drives in, dribbles by a man, and lays it in.
What I was doing years ago now, every 12-year-old is doing in every schoolyard in the country, and doing it better and probably with more panache and flair than I was doing it. But I was getting all the attention in the 50s because I was the only one doing it. And I didn't work on it, I didn't practice it. It was strictly what's the old cliche about necessity is the mother of invention.
Another great performance by Bob sees a masterpiece of twirl and overhead dexterity.
I certainly was aware that my style of playing was attractive to fans in those days, that it was a selling tool at a time when we were trying to do everything we could to attract people in to see it, because we felt as a matter of fact, that's what we used to sit around and say, you know, we've got the greatest game here, and the minute we put it in the living rooms, the minute television grabs onto it, boy, it's going to explode.
The Celtics' popularity began to grow, and the team made the playoffs year after year. Cousy was developing into a star, but the team was unable to get close to winning a championship.
Unless you're going through the motions and mailing it in, which in those days didn't happen, this gets pretty traumatic, pretty meaningful, pretty emotional. And so as a unit, we didn't leave anything on the floor. You do this for 6 or 7 or 8 months a year. If you're never grabbing the brass ring, it gets damn frustrating.
Then, in 1956, Red Auerbach traded for the draft rights of a future Hall of Famer, and Celtics history would be forever changed.
He told me there was a guy out in San Francisco by the name of Russell that if he could get him would change all our rebounding problems, and he thought he might have a good shot at it.
Cousy waiting for his man, bounce pass to Russell. Basket is good and he's fouled.
When, Russ joined the fold, we walked away saying, wow, we knew some exciting things were going to happen.
Cousy and Russell proving an efficient combination.
His animal intensity that he brought to the game, his speed and quickness in days of bigger guys, but lumbering, slow bigger guys. I mean, it was like a man playing with boys.
The addition of Bill Russell in the 1956-57 season made a good team great. Teamed with a dominant big man, Cousy raised his game to a new level, winning the NBA Most Valuable Player award while leading the league in assists and finishing 8th in scoring.
Bob Cousy, All-American from Holy Cross, 6'1", weighing 175 pounds. Although small by pro standards, Bob is one of the all-time basketball greats. In addition to being an exceptional shooter and dribbler, Bob is an outstanding playmaker and team spark plug.
Cousy and Russell made the Celtics unstoppable. Their 44-28 record was the best in the league, and it wasn't long before they were within striking distance of an NBA title.
April 13th, 1957. After 11 years, the Boston Celtics were finally in a position to win their first NBA championship. The Celtics and the St. Louis Hawks had split the first 6 games of the series. Rookie of the Year Tommy Heinsohn found the range early on. High-scoring Hawk Bob Pettit drove on another Celtic rookie, Bill Russell. Russell blocked the shot, ran up court, and finished off a give-and-go by jamming the ball home.
The kid from California and the gym rat from New York City made a formidable pair for the Celtics, and it was just the beginning of what was to come in Boston.
With 1 second left, the Hawks missed 2 shots in close, and the buzzer sounded to end the game. Bill Russell jumped for joy, and the Celtics dynasty was born.
It doesn't take long for professional athletes to get overconfident or a little cocky. In our own minds, we knew we were getting pretty good, and we were going to be pretty consistent, and there wasn't anybody that could touch us in those days if we simply played up to our potential. We knew in our hearts when we got the strength and the power, and we knew how to exercise it, I think.
The Celtics were just getting started. What followed was a period of domination not seen before or since in the history of professional sports.
At Boston Garden, the final game in the hard-fought NBA Championship Series with 14,000 jamming the arena as the Boston Celtics, white, meet the St. Louis Hawks in dark in the final and deciding game. Bob Cousy with the ball here plays one of the greatest games in a brilliant career. Then Cousy gets the ball and connects. Earlier in the series, he was in a slump, but tonight is Bob Cousy night as a scorer and as a playmaker. The Hawks are battling valiantly to catch up, but the Celtics are in unbeatable form. Right down to the final tick of the clock, the Celtics dominate the play. The final score, a decisive 122 to 103. And the man of the hour is Bob Cousy. Who else?
We had so much strength. You know, I mean, this is the best, well, it's open to judgment, but it's my judgment, it's the best basketball team that's ever been assembled. I was around for 6 championships, 11 championships in 13 years. Can you imagine starting the next season, you know, you've already got 12 or 11 rings, saying, let's win it again.
Basketball in Boston. It's the NBA Finals with Bill Russell, number 6, brilliantly spearheading the Celtics before a capacity crowd of 14,000. The Boston quintet dazzles the St. Louis Hawks with their fast break attack. Visitors fight back to trail by only 5 points in the third period. Then Russell, Cousy, Heinsohn and company start clicking. Playmaker Cousy, number 14, is in evidence all through the playoffs. With time running out, the Celtics have a solid lead, but they're still going. They clinch the series 4 games to 1 with a winning score of 121 to 112. Watch Cousy slump exhausted as the final buzzer sounds. The price for the all-out play that brings the Celtics their 3rd straight title.
The Celtics go on to win an unprecedented 5th World's Championship, 4 games to 2 in the series, led by the remarkable Bob Cousy. Since this playoff ends Bob's career as a player, we'd like to pay him his closing tribute. We know you'd like to see some highlights of his fantastic basketball wizardry. Cousy, always a standout, excelled in magic ball handling. Watch him when Boston gets the ball, take that ball down court. Watch Cousy again, stealing and passing backwards. What a thrill he was to follow. Number 14, floor general for the world champion Celtics and a phenomenal player from his high school days on Long Island through Holy Cross and on to the pros. Despite his relatively small size in a league of very tall men, Bob could more than hold his own. Watch him go all the way right now. Robert Cousy, Mr. Basketball, the toast of Boston and millions of basketball fans everywhere.
Modern players like Allen Iverson, Jason Kidd, and Steve Nash all owe a bit of their style to Bob Cousy, who redefined the point guard position.
If my playmaking skills, the forerunners for what came later, impacted any point guards that came afterwards, I would take great pride in being a forerunner in that sense.
Cousy was such an intense competitor that he would often suffer from stomach cramps and chest pains in the locker room before games. His passion made him a natural leader.
Russ and I, we didn't need any motivation. I mean, you know, we'd win a championship and come back 4 months later with the saliva dripping out of the corners of our mouths saying, oh, let's win it again. Kill.
Cousy in the lane. Russell, dunk.
Cousy's strong mental attitude was only one of his strengths. He was also blessed with rare physical gifts that set him apart from the competition.
Great peripheral vision, long arms, large hands for the time. You know, these were just skills that lent itself to the position I played. And again, complemented by severe intensity. Professional athletes work their entire career sometimes to just grab the ring once. I mean, I hate, you have to be greedy, I suppose. Russ needs another finger. He has 11. So Tommy, I think, has 8. Casey has 8 or 9 or whatever. If you're lucky enough to have that kind of strength in your career, surrounded by that kind of strength in a team sport, and be as successful as we were, that's one thing. then you get greedy and you say, boy, all I want to do is, we all want to quit when we're on top of our game with a championship. I mean, I was so blessed that I was able to do all of those things. And it enriches the memories, obviously, that you have. It's always a hell of a lot more fun reliving, championship memories, obviously, than sitting there saying, man, I played for 15 years, never grabbed the ring once.
In this tribute to this immortal basketball player, one can never forget what a team player he was, how important he was in the clutch, how he could save games by himself. This is Bob staving off the clock and the Lakers to win another world championship.
It was unique times, and the fact that we were so successful as a unit was kind of the cherry on top of the whipped cream.
All I've heard recently is how you're going to replace Bob. That's my answer. Can't be done because that's Mr. Basketball.
When I look back, I just can't imagine anyone being as fortunate in their career as I was, because even going back to, I mentioned at the outset, I was fabricated in France. My father left the farm to come over here in the height of the Depression. I have no idea why he did it, it was not his nature and all. So I've had a series of good fortune attached to my life, not only in terms of my basketball career, but in life in general. You hear a lot of jocks say, man, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I think I literally am. It couldn't have happened better for me in terms of the career with the Celtics, the way it transpired and the way it ended.
After his playing career came to an end, Cousy went on to coach at Boston College for 6 years before becoming head coach of the Cincinnati Royals. At age 41, he returned to the court for 7 games during the 1969-70 season in an effort to spark his team and draw fans. After stepping down as a coach in 1974, he returned to Boston to become a Celtics broadcaster and later became the first Hall of Famer to be named president of that institution. That's all the time we have for today's show. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on NBA TV Basketballography.